Zihang, before you go, I'm gonna do like a 10-minute overview of 25 dissertations. If you would like to comment on them at the end and then go, is that possible? Stay another 10 minutes?
10 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to part 2 here and just a quick run through the examples that I brought with, and Zihang is gonna comment on them too. So I've been on 137 dissertations, 44 as advisees, and over that time, the decades, I've learned a lot of lessons, and I've seen a lot of things happen. I had one student who was giving her dissertation proposal defense while she was pregnant in the morning, and she was from Taiwan, but she was up in Canada when she was presenting, and in the afternoon she had the baby. So I've seen lots, you know.
It's a baby or
No,
real baby?
Real baby. Real baby.
Baby.
Well, I've seen a lot of things over the time. I had one, I taught video conferencing in IUPUI, and back to back 2 weeks, so some women's water broke and they had to go to the hospital. And they put the baby under the document camera to prove that they weren't skipping class. I've had that too, but yeah, so that's a different than a dissertation. So let's see if I can. This lets me share a little bit here. Here we go. Okay.
My paper. It's the same.
25 dissertation stories, and those 25 dissertation stories are all going to vary for you. Not everything will apply to you in your dissertation. But my first student, back before many of you were born, 1989, my first dissertation was a nursing student. And nursing students at the time were getting interested in critical thinking. There was no doctorate in nursing, so they all got doctorates in educational psychology or instructional technology. So they're studying critical thinking inquiry patterns. Well, she didn't have anyone to serve. She was so worried about getting someone. Then I showed up and she got me on her dissertation. I saw my first semester right away. I served on. My point is, you'll look around and say, I can't get anyone to serve on my dissertation. People will arise. People will show up. Zihang, right? Zihang, you had an issue of getting a third member or fourth member on your dissertation, a third member. And you lost some people, left to another university. Everyone faces that, right, Zihang?
On mute. Yes, so Dr. Bickelmeyer left IU, I think, I don't know, and then so is she the chancellor now, president, vice president?
Kansas, our chancellor, yeah, she's big time.
Yeah, so I need another faculty member to be serving on the board, and then Dr. Bonk was very nice and supporting me.
So I took over as chair. Oftentimes people, I don't think I was the chair, but then I took over. Many people's. Got one yesterday, took over for Dr. Lefwich as chair. So the second is take advantage of trends. Mike Mulvaney and I did writing research and writing across the curriculum, and he was in southern Pennsylvania. I was in northern West Virginia. It's very close to each other. They call West Virginia University, nickname is University of Southern Pennsylvania, because everyone from there goes. Well, at the time, writing as thinking was big. And so even though he's in the business school, he was studying writing as thinking. Every assignment was to foster student writing. So you got to take advantage of the trends that are happening around you that might not be an important topic a decade ago or a year ago, like ChatGPT stuff. Look at the trends that are happening around you, what you read in the Chronicle, you can find. Societal changes suddenly happen. I had a student, Laura Van Voris, one of my second student actually. She studied transformative teachers' lives and so forth in Eastern Europe during the Berlin Wall coming down. Her dissertation was on teachers' definitions of democracy in Lithuania. She couldn't have done the same dissertation before the Berlin Wall came down, okay? So society can change and get you a topic. I had a student there at West Virginia, her name is Nina Zetti, and she took my class on instructional strategies and liked the jigsaw method and liked the STAD method, which was K-12. They were designed for K-12 cooperative learning, but she's dealing with college students up in Pittsburgh area. She recreated the strategies, STAD and TGT, Student Teams Achievement Divisions, and Jigsaw cooperative learning technique for college microcomputer applications class. So she used K-12 stuff in her college class. So don't, things get labeled as K-12 or college or this. Everything works across every place. Really, if you just modify it a little bit, we got to stop the talk about you're a K-12 person, you're a corporate person, we're human learning people. We want to help people learn. We all do. And we're studying learning. So she redid it and she got a great dissertation. Wonderful. It was brilliant, actually. And so you have one group using STAT and one group using Jigsaw and microcomputer app. Fifth one, Richard Stewart, my first student at Indiana, my first dissertation, my first day at Indiana University. I walk in the halls of this building. They opened up that day. It was August 1992. And I go up get in the elevator. They're taking the tape off the elevator. They're literally taking the tape off the elevator. And in comes this guy after me. I get in the elevator to go up to Ed Psych on the 4th floor. And he goes, "You're Curt Bonk, Dr. Bonk. I'm Richard Stewart. How would you like to be on my dissertation?" And, just that, and I said, "What you studying?" "Well, I have people meditating at night using Jungian psychology, and I have them wake up with alarm clocks and have them do this stream of consciousness, meditation and twilight imagery and look at, archetypes and unconscious, the collective unconscious and all this stuff. And, primordial images." I thought, wow, I'm coming to Indiana. What a cool place this is. Everyone's studying all this esoteric stuff. We're going to just have mood lights and meditation every day. Well, let me tell you, it was the only one who had that kind of a study. I just happened to be on the elevator. You just don't know oftentimes where you're going to find your committee members, walking in an elevator, you might find a committee member. Number 6, sometimes you have to work backwards. One of the most famous Korean students, and I think Sung Hee has heard of her, now her name is Kang In-ae. She's become famous for PBL and for constructivism, problem-based learning, and she's got a book on it. And she's very, very well known for that book. Well, when she was defending across the hall here back in 1995 or 94, actually, a guy named Harbans Bola was on her committee. He's a pretty smart guy, originally from India, really smart guy. Well, she was having committee members who were mad at her because she collected data before her defense of her proposal. She had the data on AI training. And Harbans worked backwards to the theory. He got her to think backwards to the theory that justified what she did. She hadn't had a theory to justify her dissertation, but it all worked out. It had a great theoretical, critical theory, actually, and so forth. Working backwards sometimes works. Some things are really theoretically deep. And one of my students, Deb Huxley-Cooney, who's actually got a chapter in my 98 book. She looked at computer-supported collaborative learning, what learning science people look at now. A case study of interactive writing, but she had all these theories that back in writing psychology back at the time was very deep, but very important. And she was able to mesh them all together for a multidisciplinary understanding of computer supported collaborative learning, and looking at collaborative learning, cooperative learning, negotiation skills, learning in groups, motivation, technologies for learning. I mean, everything was in here, but it was a fascinating one. Sometimes some dissertations, not all, some are theoretical deep. Get the right advisor to help you with that. Give faculty time to read it. My first student, I mentioned him yesterday, and that we had there was a Zoom meeting among alums of IST from the 1990s. And one of the students my first assigned doctoral student, my first in Ed Psych, my first assigned doctor, his name is John Graves. John finished his dissertation, but had a job at Accenture in Chicago. So he wanted to make sure I would read his dissertation. He sat outside my office till I finished it. My point is, give faculty a month to read you're supposed to give them a couple weeks to read a proposal. A month you're supposed to give them to read a dissertation. Okay. Maybe you can get away with 3 weeks, but yeah, to give them a little bit of time. Zihong, you have comments so far on what I've said?
All good stories. And I will stay until the end.
Thank you. Number 9. Well, she's got the best story because her grandfather's in it. Best story. So that'll be story 26. Be careful when citing yourself. So another person who's in the Zoom thing from the 1990s IST, his name's John Savory. He's a good friend. He almost died this past year from cancer a couple of times, and he's survived. But John left IU before finishing his dissertation. He went to Denver to work, and he didn't have the library resources that he had here. And he ended up citing himself. He cited himself, and he footnoted the literature review. He footnoted. And he's a brilliant guy. He looked at kind of apprenticeship, creating a community of practice in effect in the business school, solving cases and things like that. It was great, and he filmed it and all wonderful, but he didn't cite the research, and we ended up flunking him on his dissertation. Yeah. And students were sitting on that right over there, the whole room. The students in ISD had to attend at least 3 dissertations a semester, so this room was packed. It was in this room, and John was sitting there, and John took it. We gave him hard questions. And John said he was 10 years older than me, so he's a returning adult student. And the students walked out of the room saying, I'll never have Dr. Cunningham on my committee. I'll never have Dr. Bonk on my committee. I'll never have Dr. Duffy on my committee. They all left. And so we talked to the student himself, and we told him he's got 6 months to redo it. He came back and redid it, and he got outstanding dissertation award. We knew we know how far we can push the envelope of each one. So at a dissertation defense, we push when we know we can push. Okay. We want to push and we want to challenge. We want to push to the edge of where they can do. And John, we knew he could handle it, and he knew he didn't do it right. He didn't have proper citations within there, and faculty wouldn't let him get away with that. So that's good on all counts. And the fact that he won outstanding dissertations, it makes it even more of a success story. And he ended up as a faculty at the University of Akron for a long time, and was there running their teaching and technology lab for a long time there. He just retired to Arizona and overcame cancer twice. So this student, Dr. Marty Siegel, whose office I used to, Marty Siegel was on the committee with me, and I forget who else, maybe Dr. Schwen. And Marty Siegel asked a question of Erping Zhu. So Erping's one of my first students. She has a chapter in my book. She was she worked at Michigan for a long time in the Teaching and Learning Center. Her dissertation was Hypermedia Interface Design, Effects of the Number and Links and Granularity of the Nodes on Learners' Information Search and Performance. Marty Siegel just says, who cares? So faculty, someone of half of your dissertations, at least one person will ask the so what question. Why did you do this? And what I found interesting here, and this is being covered up a little bit by you can't see it here in the room, but the book there on the right-hand side is called The Shallows, How the Internet is Changing the Way We Think, Read, and Remember by Nicholas Carr. It was a best-selling book, okay? The Shallows. And what's interesting about that book that Nicholas Carr cited Erping's research in the book to justify his book, okay? The faculty member was questioning him. I'm like, yeah, it was way to go, Erping. She's, I think, one of the few students of mine who's been cited in like a top-selling book for the research that they did. So you never know where your research might be cited. Do good research. You could get cited in a popular book and get famous, like Erping. Number it should be 10 here, not 110. Number 10, faculty play intellectual footy. So Lori Nelson was a student in IST studying with Dr. Duffy and Dr. Regaluth, and she wanted to create a theoretical dissertation, not a research-based dissertation, but a theoretical, creating a new theory of collaborative problem solving, group-based collaborative problem solving. And she did her dissertation remotely from Utah, so she didn't see us in the room. 2 faculty members were disagreeing with each other. Actually, they were playing footy. They were kicking each other underneath the floor. I'm sitting here where Matt is, and next to Matt was another faculty, and it was in the room across, actually. And I could see Dr. Regaluth, who was supportive, I think, of this dissertation, kind of playing footy with Dr. Duffy, who might not have been so supportive of it. And when she went to defend, she didn't pass. She didn't realize there was tension among the committee members who didn't agree that a theoretical dissertation was a good dissertation, okay? She became, actually, Lori Nelson was on the call last night at 8 o'clock. She became pretty famous and she's very smart, but she didn't have faculty who were, the right faculty for that dissertation that she was doing. And literally, she ended up having to rewrite and end up passing. It's got lots of chapters in if you've read any Dr. Regaluth's green books, Charlie Regaluth's instructional design books, you might see her name in a chapter. She's written in there. Number 12, make sure faculty really approve. So Noriko Hara, who was on the call last night, actually, she's a faculty in informatics and information science, the chair here she's got a job at IU over in the library, was the library. Now she's in informatics building. Her parents came from Japan. I hosted the graduation. I was the MC. I had her parents stand up, you know, coming from Yokohama, Japan, and everyone's clapping for them. They're smiling and all this stuff. And she hadn't defended the dissertation yet. And when she went to defense, faculty said no. So your parents have been, you know, think she's graduated.
What?
Yeah, this has happened a couple of times. She studied public defender's office as the community of practice, community of learners in Bloomington, Indiana. The problem was the the public defender's office wasn't using technology all that much. So one fact that she had a chair from informatics and Dr. Schwen from IST, two people co-directing. And one wanted more work than the other one. They disagreed. Well, the one made her go up to Indianapolis and collect data, a second set of data for her dissertation, which had more technology in it. And that's, you know, just so she's very famous professor now, social construction of knowledge in professional communities of practice, tales of the courtroom. She had made a book, there's a book. She's got a book with Springer on this one. Number 12, make sure you tell your advisor when your defense is. So Wenhao Huang Chong, he's a great guy. We're good friends. He's in San Francisco now. His wife's a pediatric doctor. Her daughter just got into Berkeley. I keep in touch. He did formative research on the refinement of web-based instructional design and development guidance system for teaching music fundamentals at pre-college. So music, web-based music, 25 years ago. He's ahead of his time. But we're sitting in this room. I was sitting where Sung Hee is, and we're all looking at our watches. There was Dr. Regalus, this is the advisor. He wasn't there. It was an early morning dissertation, and he wasn't there. We had to call his house up. He didn't remind faculty when the dissertation was. And I think you had to wake him up, and we all waited 45 minutes for Dr. Regalus to show up for the defense. It's not Dr. Regalus' fault. It was the student's fault. Just make sure you tell your advisor when your dissertation is. Okay. Number 14. Pay attention to deadlines. So Sonny Kirkley was in the call last night, reminiscing. He's a good friend. He was the keynote last year for the IST conference, if you were there. He works in informatics and emergency preparedness training stuff. Sonny and his wife, Jamie, are both my neighbors. They both extended to the very ending of their time allotted to defend. Basically, he had 1 hour left to defend before he'd be kicked out of the program. And he did defend. Pay attention to those deadlines. IU will give you maybe an extra 10 days or 15 days if your advisor asks for it at the very end, if you're really close to finishing, but I wouldn't push them. You got 7 years after defense of your quals to do this. So, you know, I've walked over 2 dissertations to Brian Hall, one student from India, one student who's here, Shajin Ko, you know, I had to walk over. They had 45 minutes left before they would have been Shojin would have been deported, actually. She got a job full-time at IU. It can be that close at times. Don't push it. Don't, you know, try not to do 2 dissertations. So Rob Fischler was my first assigned, John Graves was my first to finish. Rob was my first assigned. In 1992, he was in my class. He asked me to be on his committee, blah, blah, blah. He took 7 years to do coursework, 7 years to dissertate. He took 14 years. When he was done, he decided to not do higher eds. He's a flight attendant for Southwest Airlines because he wants to run marathons in every city. Okay. And he, you know, so interesting guy. So Rob built a simulation. Then he tested a simulation at University of Texas at Austin. Great stuff called Sim Teachers. He was way ahead of his time. Sim Teacher, Sim School. Wonderful dissertation, but his mother died along the way. His wife left him. He had many personal issues, and it took him a while to finish. You know, my point is, don't develop software if you can avoid it. Don't develop technology if you can avoid it. I had my dissertation. We developed a keystroke mapping system, a computer prompting system, which were very easy to develop. Something easy and, you know, cheap and that, but nothing. It took him, you know, a long time to build the system that he wanted to test. So sometimes you're doing 2 dissertations, and the faculty, when you defend, they will not give you credit for building stuff. I look at it, I say, boy, this guy built this great stuff. Should we just pass him for? No, they want you to test it and get data and all that. So don't kill yourself if you can avoid it, and don't take 14 years if you can avoid it. Don't be afraid
Dr.
to talk
Bonk.
to your peers. I had 3 students who's
Hi, Dr. Bonk.
Zihang. Ed, yeah, go ahead, Ed.
I did I raised my hand, put my right hand up before point number 12. What's the chair's role to help the committee come to an agreement? so that the student's not the one suffering between disagreements of committee members.
Yeah, what's the chair's role? Tell everyone to shut up? No, you know, the chair's role is to be the defender. You're the first line of action, you know, the first line in the sand. So that's why the students, when they come up with ideas, they shouldn't go to the members of the dissertation for, here's my hypothesis. You should get the hypothesis run by your chair first.
Right.
Because if the chair buys in, then you can say, well, Dr. Bonk agreed to do this kind of thing. So, now, this was an unusual case. This was an unusual case. In this case, though, the guy that disagreed was extremely famous. There's actually an award on our campus for him. He died shortly after. He was a social informatics person. Rob Kling was his name. And actually, Noriko ended up coming back to IU to work with him, and he died. So there's a lot of context here, but famous guy, and that's why they couldn't disagree with him, because he brought a lot of the baggage or the leverage that you have from becoming a world famous person, right?
Okay.
So don't get someone who's famous, get someone who's not like me, you know, just a little people. That's a short, but the advisor's supposed to defend you, and it's supposed to, you know, That's a great question. It's a great question, and but he did make some points that were relevant. You know, if you're going to study communities of practice in the 21st century, it better be technology enhanced ones of some way. You know, we're not, you know, she shouldn't be studying communities that using 19th century technology, infrastructure. Don't be afraid to talk to your peers. Guoping Ma is now at Microsoft. I talked to her recently. She looked at online communities in context of distance ed, case study. The issue with her is we had two students at the exact same time studying communities of practice, just like she was, and they wouldn't talk to each other because they thought dissertations all had to be separate. You can't talk to someone else or help them. That's be your, and she's wrong. You can talk to anyone you want to. You can share resources, share references. I co-dissertated. My colleague Tom Reynolds and I built a computer software tool. He studied college students. I studied middle school. Totally separate dissertations, but we formed a model of writing all this stuff at night in his office. We worked together on this. We subdivided. You can work with others. You can talk to others. You know, don't be afraid. Number 17. Some faced personal tragedies. So Manjari Singh, she got depressed actually, and she was amongst many and wouldn't write anything, but all of a sudden came off the medication and wrote like 200 pages in a week to finish. But Manjari lived with girls embedded in the community education in northwestern India near the Kashmirian border. And I would have thought that was kind of dangerous, but she lived with them for a year embedded doing this research. Fascinating stuff. In this girls' education program, looking at social cultural theory within the program and all this, and the support structures. And I see a question in the chat here. Okay, Alicia's got to run. Okay, well, we'll save some candy for you, Alicia, for tomorrow. I'll give you. So, anyways, you know, her father died along the way, so personal tragedies happen, and can delay that. It can delay, but tell your advisor when you know. Don't hide for 6 months. Kind of at some point, you're gonna have to let people know that you are facing a tragedy of some sort. You don't have to tell them everything, you know, but at least at least contact them. Say I'm still alive. I'm still working on it. And she had great data, but she lost family members along the way, and other things happened to her. Like I said, and it just slowed her way down. And it happens to more people than you would think. A lot. Sometimes you need to collect less data. So Kwame Dakwa was my student studying in Ghana. She was looking at school reform in Ghana. And he was supposed to study 3 school districts in different parts of Ghana. And I got an email from Kwame, who, by the way, never finished because he didn't finish one of his classes. And he had to redo everything. Anyways, he had collected his data before finishing one of his classes. I don't know how that happened. But when he was out in Ghana, he wrote me an email saying, Dr. Bonk, I got 2 data sites. I got 2 parts of data. I don't think I should do the third. And I said, well, why don't you want to do the third data source? We approved it, the faculty, the committee, we all signed off. You're doing 3 data sets. He says, well, the ruler of the northern province within Ghana yesterday got his head chopped off. And I don't think I want to go collect data in that province. So I said, Kwame, you don't have to go to the third province. You're fine with 2 data sources, okay? So you just sometimes and this happens more often than you would think. When you get out in the real world, you might not have all the data sources that you thought you were gonna have.
Yep.
You might not be able to do the focus groups or something, you know? So it's a true story. All these are true stories. Jill's looking at me like, what?
The risk.
They take a risk. Sometimes you collect extra data. And a lot of times, I collected extra data, keystroke data. Well, Maina Ju, who'll be our guest next week, I talked to her about collecting extra data on student interviews. So her and I sat in this room doing student interviews of MOOCs. Her dissertation was on instructor side. But because she had collected data on the students too, within the first month after graduating, she had 6 peer-reviewed articles accepted for publication. Okay? She had all this data that she could publish. She had extra data. The other faculty didn't care about, but I found that fascinating. We might have mentioned it somewhere in the dissertation. They don't have to know. You might tell your advisor you're collecting extra data. Jen came to our class, I think, and was sharing some of her dissertation with us, and she collected extra data in the corporate setting, or was going to. So yeah. Sometimes you should just try to agree with your committee members. Like when you're trying to publish, you should agree with the publisher, the editors, and so forth.
Try to.
I had a student last year or 2 years ago who disagreed with her faculty members,
Yeah, what's.
and she almost didn't pass because she wouldn't do anything that we wanted her to do. It was a real struggle back and forth. And you know, that was an issue, a huge issue. And I was not, you know, I was trying to serve as a go-between between the faculty who thought she summarized it wrong, or framing was wrong, or the data she collected, all sorts of things. And the student was adamant that she was correct. And it went back and forth like that. You know, we settled on a compromise, but it took some stress and strain. Don't stress your advisor out like that and disagree with everyone, you know, please don't do that. Sometimes the data is right at your fingertips. So Mangwan Zhao, who's presented in here a couple weeks ago, and Jennifer Park, who I mentioned, she was in here a couple. So sometimes the data is just right there. It's right in front of your face. You just have to recognize it. So Mangwan studied these online communities within course networking, which is like Canvas, which is like Black, all these. It's a learning management system, but with features like Twitter or like Facebook combined in. So the guy who built course networking built the IU system. Before that, he hired her when she graduated. She was my master's student. She had all the data as a, you know, doctoral student sitting there. And she has probably 8 dissertations there. And Chen is going up there to analyze some of the data that's up there. There's just data up there waiting to be analyzed, right? So, you know, sometimes it's right there. You just got to recognize what you got. Sometimes it's a spigot that opens wide up. So Rob here, he's an instructor at IUPUI. I think soon to be split off to Purdue and Indiana. He studied mobile learning at IU before, so he got the data before COVID, because COVID would disrupt the data, exact data. He got tens of millions of data points, literally. I might be underestimating, hundreds of millions of data points on mobile learning for IU, across all IU campuses. This is huge. It's a fascinating dissertation. And he was one of 2 people I've been on who had no revisions. So he's a smart guy. He won awards for his teaching up there. He teaches, like, he might be in the computer media and learning analytics area, which Zihong is in too. Zihong, you met him, right? Because you met him in graduation?
Yeah, I talked to him a few times.
Yeah, so sometimes it's beyond your wildest dreams. You never know what's there.
And Dr. Bonk, I think you also allowed us to see his dissertation defense.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so I know we're sat in on that one.
Yeah, what'd you think?
You probably had to stop him because he could probably talk all day about that. Since he worked there and saw the data on a regular basis, he clearly had a heads up. He was looking at this data anyway, so why not do a dissertation on it? Made sense.
Yeah, right. So here, you're looking at it every day, might as well form a dissertation topic, right? And it was a good presentation. It was a hybrid, right? So you got to watch remotely. So, and the technology worked like today, right?
Yes.
Those are the good days. Number 23 of 25. Sometimes your passion requires you to go back home. So Heijong Lee is going to Korea for her dissertation data collection. She was our guest in week 1 or 2. Charan Wang went back to China to collect her data in rural parts of China to look at synchronous English instruction in rural China. And she wants to help her country out. So sometimes you have to go back to your, there's data waiting for you to analyze or look at and collect, all around your homeland. Might as well, and make a difference in the world. And build on it, then build on that. And so she got her master's in IST, her doctorate in language ed, and has done more IST stuff. She's got 2 books in press, or she's working on AI edited books right now. We got 3 journal articles, maybe. It's number 24. Sometimes you go to another country, and sometimes you stay home. So William Kanye wanted to go back home to Kenya, back in Africa, and look at maker spaces. Okay. Well, the maker spaces weren't as popular in Kenya as they were in the US, and he wanted to look at shareable objects being built within the maker spaces, and he found going to do more of a survey and interview of makerspace directors in the US was a better option, and so he just stayed within the US. So sometimes you have grandiose options of going back home and helping the country and understand. And other times you have to have pragmatic decisions of where you're going to get the data. The last one, public health. So Elizabeth and Pate was going to study Scratch for kids in Baltimore, Maryland. The pandemic happened. And so the kids weren't coming to school. She couldn't look at Scratch. But what she could look at is bit emojis within, Google Classroom, and look at the online courses that the students were taking. So she had to change her topic at the last minute. She had her proposal accepted. She had to create a new dissertation topic, a new proposal, because of a healthcare scare. So that's 25 different dissertations. As you can see, they're all different issues that come up, all different circumstances, all different contexts. And so, yeah, you just never know what's going to happen. And so I don't want to scare you, but I want to inform you of, when something happens to you, you're probably not alone. In whatever issue you're facing, someone else has faced it before, most likely. Zihong, you want to tell your story? 26.
My story.
Tell your grandfather's story. Tell your
My story is very long. I can talk about it for a day, but
it's the 2-minute version. Collecting data. Tell them what data you collected.
Oh, my data. Oh, that's for faculty, right? It's for faculty development. So I interviewed faculty members in the IUPUI campus. Yeah, and another thing I want to share is that actually before I was doing my dissertation I was working full-time as the consultant at the Bloomington Teaching Center. So I was having a full-time job before I started the dissertation thing. So that's kind of hard for me. And later, as a single mom, I have a full-time job, have the dissertation thing, and then have a baby, having a baby. It's kind of very hard for me. And then sometimes, I don't know how many times, but I was thinking, whether I want to have a PhD, since I can do, I was like doing my work successfully, and then I was paid, by IU, and having all the benefits from IU, and then why I want to bother to finish my PhD. But Dr. Bonk was very supportive, and he stepped in all the time. And then whenever I got a problem, I always talk to him, let him know what's going on with my, with what's going on with me, and then like any problem, any struggles, any concerns, and then so he always supported me in different ways, and then he said, I'm sure you can finish it, you can do it, and yeah, so here I am.
Now, you didn't really talk about your study because she studied digital badging, right? So
my dissertation topic.
Very important today is micro-credentials, right?
Yeah, actually, my campus this year, they already offered 2 macro-credential programs for our students.
And the other thing she didn't mention is she promised her grandfather, as I said, she would finish, and she did finish. And unfortunately, after he passed away, but she, was able to fulfill that mission. And so very important thing there. I've got part 3, but I think people are snoring already, and are kind of wigging out here. And so let's just have people ask questions on anything that I said in those 25, now 26 examples, or any issues for Zihang. She's still here. So I see Mika's with us here. And we haven't heard from her. So Mika, has anything come up that you would like to mention or ask a question of either Zihang or I?
Not yet. I'm still thinking. Some of I really liked the topics you just covered and earlier, and I liked the explained paper. I just recently learned about ChatPDF last week because one of my friends in Canada, she's doing her PhD in marketing, and she uses it and finds it very effective while she works on her dissertation. So it's good to hear of other resources that are out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Zihang did an excellent job again, and I need, if I teach this class again in the near future, I need to bring her back because this is a very important topic. Things will change. I don't know if I was on the schedule of doing this once or twice a year, but I think someone else is going to take over next year on this. But we should give her another round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
And any other questions or issues from anyone?
So, Dr. Bonk, I had a question. I know for like qualifications, right now it currently states that you can't use AI for anything related to, but like pulling up quick summaries and then reviewing that and translating to. Do you think there'll be a future that will be part of qualifications or allowed in the qualifications?
Yes, just like Wikipedia was banned first, for a while, and people started accepting, referencing Wikipedia for some things. That's the only place you can find a resource. If it calls up or makes a synthesis, it's basically like a person would make a systematic review of the research, and you take it and repurpose it and reuse it and rewrite it and cite it. That's going to be more acceptable. But to have it do your the entire literature review or even a section of your literature review or a paragraph, that's going to be problematic. So again, it's like anything, rewriting, restructuring, something. That's true of any book you read. It's true of any presentation you go to. You get the transcript of the presentation. You don't want to quote it. So, think about it as, a person,
Yeah.
which is,
Right.
sort of, but for right now, people are on the cautionary side.
I was just looking at it for a purpose of finding articles. So if you found it, hell, this would help you quickly find articles, then you can have something to reference real quick, especially if it's categorized. That's what I was referring to, not writing for you.
No, definitely use it as a resource that augments you and your army of it's your personal army of finding and collecting resources. So yeah, you don't have to, if they found you something in Google search or Google, found something, you don't have to cite it for finding articles for you. Or even summarize, even reading them and having your audio book created out of, so when you're driving your car, you're listening to the best parts. When I'm running now, I'm listening to things all the time, podcasts. And you can turn, there's a project where we're turning ChatGPT into a podcast show. And I'm sure that will be true in research here. We'll have ChatGPT research on XYZ that you can listen to at any time, and we'll be citing it. I'm going to stop the recording here at this point. I want to thank everyone for coming to week 6, R795 spring semester 2024. See how